Hi, this is Elvira from Scrappy Mania. Today we're going to create a card. Now I had a previous video in where I was comparing some glimmer foils, some papers. I was comparing two different types of folding machine. I was comparing the Couture Creation my old foiling machine with the new Glimmer foiling machine. And I was also comparing the new Pinkfresh solid foiling plate that is supposedly help you get use of all your foils, because when you do your background, when you do your foiling on your card, the excess, you're able to reuse that excess and create a second card or a second image. So I have all those videos. I'll put the link below for all those videos. So I also in that video told you that I was gonna upload cards that I make with the discard, because some of my discard did not come out nice. You know, that is not the best discard print, and this one is not very good either. So we had some epic failures, but instead of throwing this away, we're gonna use it. So what I'm planning to use these two discard. I also have another video where I was evaluating 4 different type of embossing powders, and this is one of the images that I started doing, and I used my Stampin' Up! Gold embossing powder on this. So I'm going to use that. I don't want to throw it away. It's not what I would like to have, because, you know, at the end I settled on Stupendous embossing powder, the gold one, this one, and I really love this one. I also have a video in where I showed you how I used that to create this card, and also I have another video in where I was evaluating the switch and I made this embossing folder, so I went ahead and used it. So, you know, I had a lot of product reviews, and when I do those product review, I try to incorporate it in a card, but a lot of times when I incorporate it in a card or in a scrapbook, I don't videotape that. So I'm going to start just taking those, you know, when I do review a product and I'm giving my opinion on a product, or if I'm doing a technique, then I want to incorporate the video using the failures or the success of that technique, because everything you can use it, even the failures like this, is just, you just need to approach it with a little bit different approach than if it came out nice like this. Okay, so I have black cardstock, so if you don't see this on your screen, I do have a piece of black cardstock. This is 110 pound. So it's the paper pack that you get at Michael's, and it's the cardstock pack, and I usually like to buy the 110 because I do like how nice those are for making my card bases. So I'm going to use that. I went ahead and cut it, fold it, and I'm doing it top fold versus side fold. So this card, so also the other thing I'm using is I do have a typewriter, so I type a lot of sayings and sentiments on my leftover cardstock. So let's say I cut some cardstock out as this, I save it, and then I use that to create a lot of sentiments, and I put it in a little baggie where when I need it, I just pull it. And, you know, I just, happy birthday, you are special. This sentiment here, it says, you bring me joy. I'm going to use that one. And then to cut it out, I went ahead and used this Spellbinder Glimmer Sentiment, which is mini everyday sentiments. So I'm going to use the die to cut the sentiment out. So this banner die. And go ahead and put that there. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to cut my first panel to size, because I want to leave a little edge. And since I'm going to double mat this, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one to 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, let's look at that. That looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Oh, actually, before I cut it out, let's see how this works. So I'm going to have to cut, I want to double mat it or triple mat it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one because I want to use this piece of scrap. And I'm going to cut this one out 1/8 of an inch smaller, or actually maybe a 1/4 inch smaller. So it's 3 3/4 by 5. That's the size I'm cutting this. And that makes it a little smaller. So we're going to double mat that. And let's wait for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on here. Make sure, and actually I want to go ahead and try out this We Are Memory mini laser. So let's see if I can use this to really get a nice outline. So I can match this here maybe. Maybe not for this. I'm going to maybe use it for the sentiment. Doesn't work as well. Let's go ahead and read. Okay, that looks even. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this on here, but I want it to stand out because it's kind of getting lost in the gold background. So I'm just going to use some black ink, and I'm just going to ink the edges. And see, now I can see it a little better. It's very faint, but it does make a difference. I don't know if you can catch it up in the camera, but it kind of makes a difference. You can see that paper a little better than before. I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive. Okay, so now that I have that down, I think I'm going to cut this panel. Actually, before I cut it, let's go ahead and watercolor it. So I have my Aquafine from Daler and Rowney, and you can use any watercolor that you have. So this happens to be what I have right now on my desk. You don't want to use a lot of water, so because this is not watercolor paper, so you have to be very careful how much water you're going to use. So I need a piece of either a towel or, you know, a paper towel. I'm going to use a towel this time, so that way we don't waste too much paper and put it on a landfill. So because this is not watercolor paper, I'm going to be very careful with how much water I'm going to put on in the image. And I'm using a synthetic brush because it won't soak up too much water. And I'm not going back and getting more water. I'm just using whatever's on my brush. And then I'm taking pure pigment and just dropping when it's wet, and wet to wet technique, just dropping it into the flower, as you can see here. And look, it gives a nice little shading, but it's not overly saturated either. So here I'm just taking a little bit more water, not too much. What you don't see me doing off camera is as I pick up more water, I wipe that on my towel so that way I'm not gonna saturate too much the paper. You don't want it peeling up the paper fibers because you put too much water on your image. So then now I'm gonna go ahead and start doing the leaves. I'm gonna do the same thing. As I'm rinsing out my brush, I'm drying off the excess water on my towel, and then I'm just dropping the color on the areas that I think are part of the leaf and the stem. And then I'm going to pick up some pure pigment and just drop it right at the base of the flower and at the base of the leaf, and that will give me that nice dimension. I like it because that little bit of green, when it mixed with the water, it kind of bleeds out and give it that nice ombre look and the shadows and things. So this is done. So I'm going to wait until that dries. You can leave some, see I left some white areas. That's good. Don't need to cover it all up. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this. And you want to use a hair dryer versus embossing tool because you don't want to remelt the embossing powder. So I'm going to dry it and then I'll come back. So it dried, and now what I decided is I'm going to go ahead and put some sparkle on this. This is a crystal clear and it has some mica in it, and I'm just going to put some very lightly on top. And what that does is gives it, it's going to give it a little bit of shine. You got to be careful because you don't want to move the watercolor, but I don't know if you can see that on the camera, the sparkle, but it gives it just a little sparkle. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and place that on my magnetic mat, and I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to cut this out. I'll put a little tape so it won't move. Let me just run it through my Sizzix switch. And see how nice that cut out? It even cut out the little perforations on the edges. And this is that was a Sizzix die that I purchased some time ago. I'll put the link if you are looking for that one. And then the next one I'm going to use is actually a Spellbinder card creator. I think that's the name of it. They're nested dies, and so I cut the background, and then I wanted to use some of the leftover from that frame, and I'm going to use that to back my sentiment. So here I am cutting it by hand because this particular die that I used to cut the banner does not have a coordinated shadow banner. So I went ahead and am doing it by hand, and it did look good. So that I'm almost done with this, and sorry about that. I'm trying to get some medication for my brother, so that's why I have to dub over, because I've been on hold for about 10 minutes, and while I was on hold, that's why I was composing this card. Multitasking. So I went ahead and put my seine on. I backed it with the leftovers. I went ahead and cut this 2 squares there. And now I'm going to go ahead and mount this on my cardstock. But I think it needs, let's see, this needs a little darker because it's kind of, see how you can see it? It's not really standing out. So if I ink the edges just a little bit, Now when I put it on here, it really stands out. And I want to go ahead and make this one to stand out a little bit too. So I'm going to ink the edges. And I'm going to go ahead and place this one on first. And actually don't like it there. Let me go ahead and center it a little better. Okay, so now it's center. I may want this to stand out more. So I may go ahead, I'm going to use this and I'm going to cut a foam, and then I'm going to go ahead and put that foam underneath it. So let me cut a piece of fun foam, and I'll come back. When I cut the fun foam, I do have the dots. I don't want that to show on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that out. And I guess you don't need the die to cut it. You could just actually cut a little square smaller than your panel. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that on my panel. And I want to make sure that you cannot see it. See, I can see it across that area, so I'm going to cut it a little smaller. So what you want to do is when you put your panel on here, you don't want to see it through those dots. You want to make sure that it's a little smaller. And then I'm just going to put it in the middle. So right there, as you can see, you won't see it on the other side. Okay. And I might be able to cut it a little smaller just to make sure that I cannot see it on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on here. And then I'm going to put something heavy on top. So you can take your acrylic block, place it on top, let it dry, and we'll come back and we'll go ahead and put this on there. But before we put it on there, I think I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges on this piece. And let's set it aside, give this time to dry, and then we'll put it on top. Okay, let's see. So it adhered pretty nicely on my cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and place that here, but I think I will like a little dimension, not too much, just a little bit. And actually I can use a strip of this, so it'll be the same width as that. So I'm just going to cut a strip. And sometimes you have these foam that are kind of weird color. You're not going to use it, so it's perfect for this. So you can use this for behind your panels or your sentiments. And that works well, because sometimes our foam adhesive, it's a little too thick. If you notice the thickness of this versus the thickness of this, it's half of it. So if you want the dimension but you don't want really thick dimension on your piece, then you can use these foam. You get them pretty economical. You can also get it at the dollar store. You can use that to back your panels and your sentiments. and it gives you that depth, but not to the point that it's just too thick to put through the mailer. And then you need to use tacky glue, like what I'm using here, in order to glue it in place. Okay, and then I'm going to put this straight down. I'm going to let it dry, and then we'll come back. And the last thing I want to do on this panel is I want to use these pearls, and I'm going to use that for these. So I'll be back. So I bought these, are mainly for your nail art at Amazon. It was pretty economical, and I think these will look good on here. Oh, that one is Mickey Mouse. I don't want Mickey Mouse. Let me see what I can find here. These are circles. So let's get a couple. On here. You're not going to be able to see it against the mat there, but, and then I'm going to use just a little tiny bit of adhesive. Just use a fine tip adhesive that, you know, that it doesn't gonna put a lot of glue, because these things are just extremely tiny, and so you don't want to put a big glob of glue. It won't work as well. So here I'm just placing them randomly on my panel, and in a moment you'll see that I think I went a little overboard. I didn't want that many, but then I just went overboard with these. So I simply used a sharpener, and look how nice and sharp that is. And now I think I'll have better success of placing these down where I want it. I do like these wax tip picker uppers, or whatever you want to call it, to help pick up these little elements. It does a good job. It also does a good job with gems, so I'll put the link if you're interested on getting these. They were pretty economical, and I got a pack of 10 of these wax sticks. They're pretty nice. Okay, so I'm done with this card, and I don't know if you can see it sparkle in the background, but there is my card. So I hope you liked this video, and I gave you an idea of what to do with those leftover not so good foiling panels. Just don't throw them away. You can reuse them in a card, and look, that looks wonderful. You got a little bit of sparkle in the back, just a little nice little panel in the middle, and there, you're done. Oh, before I forget, we need to go ahead and put in the inside, like this one, you want to go ahead and put something so you can write inside. So I'm going to go ahead and cut cardstock, so I can take some cardstock, and I'm going to cut it 5, I'm going to do it 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then you're just going to place that right there in the center. So whenever you're using black cardstock, you have to put a white cardstock panel in the middle. Look how pretty that looks, and really love the shine. And I went ahead and put a white cardstock. This is cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4, and that way you can go ahead and stamp your saying in the middle. But I do like how this came out. I really enjoy making these type of cards, and I really enjoy making cards with the scraps that otherwise I would throw away. So I hope you like this video, and thank you for watching. Bye now.